The room was far too quiet for a test like this. No crowd noise, no bravado, only a few experienced eyes watching as Bruce Lee allowed a blindfold to be tied firmly over his face. He didn't step back. He didn't joke. In that silence, everyone understood what was at stake. A single attempt. A single movement. If it went wrong, there would be no way to soften it. No explanation that could protect a reputation built on reality, not myth. For a few seconds, balance, timing, and restraint would matter more than speed or strength. Some thought they were about to witness the end of an idea. Others sensed they were standing at the beginning of a story that would never quite be told out loud. To understand why this moment mattered, you have to return to the minutes just before everything narrowed to breath, pressure, and one irreversible decision. Let us know where you're watching from, and we hope you enjoy the story. The ordinary training session ended without ceremony. No applause, no sense of conclusion, just the dull sound of shoes leaving the mat and the slow return of personal conversations. Yet a handful of people remained. Not students killing time, but practitioners who had already proven themselves elsewhere. They stood apart in quiet clusters, stretching without urgency, watching without staring. The room felt narrower now, as if the walls had edged closer once the crowd thinned. Bruce Lee was still there, wiping his hands with a towel, listening more than speaking. The talk that lingered was not about speed or strength. It moved carefully, circling questions of balance, of reflex without sight, of how much the body truly knows when vision is taken away. No one raised their voice. This was not a place for boasts. Someone mentioned a guest, almost in passing. A judoka, black belt, not a student here. The way his name was avoided made it clear enough. He had his own standing. A man who did not need to explain himself. He leaned against the wall now, relaxed, arms loose, as if the conversation barely concerned him, though his eyes tracked every shift in the room. The suggestion came carefully, wrapped in caution. What if a throw were attempted against someone blindfolded? Not as a challenge, not as a demonstration, just to see what remained when sight was gone. The words hung there, uncertain, waiting to be dismissed. Bruce did not answer right away. He asked questions instead. About the floor, about distance, about how many attempts. He did not look at the judoka when he spoke, but he did not avoid him either. When he finally responded, his tone was even, deliberate. One attempt only. No combinations. Safety first. For both sides. A watch came off his wrist and was placed aside, the small click unnaturally loud. Heads turned. A few glances crossed, then dropped. It became clear this was not Bruce issuing a test. The idea had come from the room itself, and that shifted the weight of it. Declining now would feel different than refusing a dare. The agreement settled quickly. One entry. No retrees. No proving points. The judoka straightened. No smile. No tension. Just acknowledgement. Reputation was already on the floor with them. Flesh and bone would follow. As the rules were set, the space seemed to contract. Conversation drained away. What had been talk became preparation, and attention slid, inevitably, toward the quiet moment just before movement begins. The attention did not break when Bruce stepped forward. It tightened. He did not rush. His foot brushed the floor first, a small test, forward, then a few centimeters to the side, feeling for grip, for seams, for any lie the surface might tell under pressure. He nodded once, more to himself than to anyone else. Only then did he ask for a blindfold, specific about it. Not a towel, not a jacket sleeve, something that would stay in place. When it was handed to him, he examined the cloth briefly. then returned his focus to the space between himself and the judoka. He spoke again, quieter now, where they would stand, how far apart, what angle would keep them from colliding by accident. He repeated the rule, one entry only, not as a warning, but as a boundary that made the task smaller, cleaner. No running starts, no surprise sweeps. The blindfold went on, fabric sliding across skin with a soft rasp. Light vanished. Bruce adjusted it once, ensuring there were no gaps, then let his hands fall. His breathing changed almost immediately. Slower, shallower, more contained. The stance he took was not wide or dramatic. It drew inward, compact, knees soft, weight alive rather than planted. Across from him, the judoka shifted. Not forward yet, just enough to test distance. A single step without commitment, heel never quite striking the mat. The sound carried anyway. Someone in the second row swallowed, loud enough to be noticed and quietly resented. Bruce lifted his chin a fraction, not to see, but to listen. The muscles along his back settled. His balance did not freeze. It adjusted in small, constant increments, as if sight had been replaced by something more sensitive. This was not immobility. It was readiness without excess. What surprised a few of the witnesses was how much Bruce limited himself. He had reduced the variables instead of courting danger. The blindfold did not make him tentative, it sharpened his choices. Every unnecessary option was stripped away. A belt clicked softly against fabric as the judoka breathed out and reset his footing. No contact yet. Still, the room reacted. A half-step backward rippled through the observers, instinctive, as if giving space to something that could no longer be paused. With vision gone, there was only sound, pressure, and timing. And those, Bruce seemed to be gathering carefully, letting them settle into place as the seconds began to narrow. The narrowing did not announce itself. It arrived quietly, through absence. The judoka moved again, this time not testing the floor, but the space, drifting closer with intent, held back just enough to remain unreadable. His shoulders stayed loose. His hands hung ready, fingers relaxed, prepared to close the moment distance collapsed. He was not rushing. He was waiting for certainty. Bruce responded without stepping away. A shift ran through him instead, so small it barely registered as motion. His center adjusted, not backward, not forward, but slightly off the line that had existed a second before. It was the kind of correction made before imbalance appears, when prevention still looks like calm. No one spoke. Someone did whisper a single word, "Now," and regretted it instantly. The sound felt intrusive, like a door creaking in a quiet church. Bruce's breathing did not change. The judoka's did, just slightly, syncing for a brief moment with the rhythm across from him. Two bodies aligning before impact, whether they wished to or not. The distance thinned to something measurable only by instinct. Cloth brushed air. The judoka angled his lead foot, committing weight forward in preparation for entry. It was not yet the throw, but the promise of it, the gathering of momentum that makes retreat expensive. Bruce turned his front foot a few degrees. Not enough to be seen, enough to be felt. The adjustment changed nothing and everything. His hands remained still, hanging where they were, denying the room any hint of defense. To an outside eye, it might have looked like hesitation. It was not. The judoka read what he could. No retreat, no block, no sudden tension. That absence became information, and he chose to act. His weight continued forward, carefully now, as if stepping into a corridor that might narrow without warning. The risk was clear. A fraction too late, a fraction too early, and gravity would decide for both of them. Bruce's principle held him in place, not to overpower, not to shock, but to interrupt the action before it could complete itself. Heartbeats grew louder, or perhaps attention sharpened enough to hear them. The room felt suspended, every witness aware that nothing had happened yet, and that everything depended on what would happen next, in seconds that no longer belonged to anyone to stop. The entry began without warning, but not without preparation. The judoka's torso came forward, smooth and confident, arms lifting into position as his weight committed at last. It was the moment he had been building toward, the place where timing replaces thought. The space between them collapsed, air pushed aside by two bodies converging. Before contact, Bruce felt it. Not hands, not fabric, but pressure changing along his forearms and shoulders, the subtle compression that comes a heartbeat before impact. He did not brace. He did not retreat. Instead, his height shifted. Barely. His spine lengthening as his hips lowered, changing the conversation between gravity and balance. For a fraction of a second, his weight transferred to the rear foot. Not fully, not enough to look like avoidance, just enough to alter where resistance would be found. The judoka expected structure, something to load against, something that would confirm the throw as it formed. What he met instead was absence. His hands searched and found motion where stillness should have been. The angle he had chosen no longer led where he intended. Momentum, once invited, now had nowhere clean to go. The throw was still possible, barely, but the window narrowed with alarming speed. A foot slid softly across the floor, not a scramble, but an adjustment. Fabric whispered as bodies passed closer than planned. The judoka's breath hitched, sharp and involuntary, as his inner map failed to match reality. He had read the entry correctly. What he had not accounted for was that it had been read earlier, at the start. Bruce did not meet force with force. He allowed the line of attack to continue, guiding it past his own center, his hands still quiet, his shoulders loose. The decision had been made before the movement was visible, and now it unfolded with a calm that felt almost unfair. Around them, witnesses froze. Someone took a step back without realizing it. The sound of breath being held spread through the room, collective and tight. No one could say exactly what they were seeing, only that something essential had shifted. The judoka understood it then, not as defeat, but as recognition. The throw was slipping away, not blocked, not broken, simply no longer available. Balance wavered, and in that wavering lived a moment that could not be reclaimed, only answered. The answer came as motion that barely deserved the name. The judoka's forward drive continued, but the center he had committed to was no longer there. His weight tipped into a hollow space, the kind that demands correction or punishes hesitation. Instinct chose for him. A foot shot out to recover balance, landing heavier than intended, the sound dull and final. Bruce touched him then. Not a strike, not a grab. A brief contact, direction rather than force, placed with the precision of someone closing a door at exactly the right moment. It lasted less than a second, enough to clarify where the judoka could not go, and where he must. The effect was immediate. The throw dissolved, not in collapse, but in redirection. The judoka's body obeyed physics rather than plan, stepping through to save itself. His shoulders stayed upright, his spine intact, but the attempt was gone. There would be no completion, no dramatic fall, only recovery. Bruce did not follow. He did not chase the imbalance he had created. He remained where he was, stance unchanged, breathing steady beneath the blindfold. The cloth still covered his eyes. The world had not returned to him visually, and he did not rush to reclaim it. For a beat, nothing filled the space where action had been expected. Then someone exhaled, quietly, as if surprised to find they had been holding air. The sound broke the tension without breaking the silence. Here lay the risk now, different from before. To continue would tip the moment into dominance, maybe even embarrassment. To stop might invite doubt from those who came expecting something decisive. Bruce felt that line as clearly as any shift of balance. He chose stillness. The judoka steadied himself fully, feet set, breath uneven but controlled. He did not look away. Neither did Bruce, though he could not see. The attempt had ended without conclusion in the usual sense, yet nothing felt unfinished. Time seemed to dip, a small hollow of its own, before rising again. Bruce's calm breathing threaded through the space, unbroken, while across from him the other man's breath slowly found rhythm. The room waited, sensing that what mattered next would not be another movement, but a decision. The stillness did not last long enough to settle. The judoka, guided by habit more than intent, tried to reclaim what had slipped away. A second motion began, not a full commitment, but a reflexive reach for control. A tightening through the arms as he sought a renewed grip before balance fully returned. It was subtle, almost polite, but it carried risk all the same. Bruce sensed it before the weight finished shifting. Something changed in the air, a tightening that announced itself through pressure rather than touch. He answered with less than a step. His axis moved. No visible turn, no forceful counter, just a quiet displacement that took the center off its mark. It was not a throw. It was the removal of the possibility of one. The effect was immediate and final. The judoka's forward option vanished, and with it, the safety of continuation. He stopped sharply, breath leaving his chest in a short, surprised rush as his feet searched for certainty. One sole slid, catching the floor just in time. Had he continued, gravity would have taken over without mercy. Bruce released contact at once. His hands withdrew, empty, offering nothing to push against. He did not capitalize. He did not close distance. The blindfold remained in place a moment longer than required, as if the decision to end mattered more than the signal to do so. No one moved. There was no reaction sound, no approving murmur. The silence was complete, heavier now because it was chosen rather than imposed. What had happened lasted scarcely a second, yet it stood alone, clean and unmistakable. In that second, the difference became clear. Bruce could have finished. He could have demonstrated dominance and left no doubt. Instead, he stopped at the exact point where control was proven and harm was optional, and therefore refused. The judoka remained upright, breath uneven but under command, eyes fixed on the covered face before him. He understood. The room understood. The absence of spectacle sharpened the truth of it. Time resumed its normal pace, but the moment stayed suspended, intact, waiting for what would come not from movement, but from what followed. The weight of it settled only after Bruce reached up and loosened the cloth. He removed the blindfold slowly, not as a reveal, but as a return. Light came back in pieces. The pale floor, the line of feet, the judoka standing where he had stopped himself. Bruce did not step away until his eyes were clear. Only then did he shift back a single pace, granting space now that it was no longer dangerous. He looked at the man across from him, not searching for reaction, only checking. A quiet scan, posture steady, shoulders square, breath coming back under control. Satisfied, Bruce gave a small nod. It carried no triumph, no invitation, just acknowledgement. The judoka answered in kind. He straightened, inhaled deeply, then inclined his head once. No smile, no embarrassment. The exchange was simple and complete. What needed to be understood had already been understood. Someone nearby finally let out a breath they had not realized they were holding. The sound was almost apologetic, as if breaking a rule. After that, the ordinary noises of the room began to return one by one. The faint scuff of a shoe, fabric settling, the low hum of air moving again. No one spoke right away. The training session was over, though no signal had been given. People remained where they were, not out of hesitation, but because leaving felt premature. Something had been placed in the room that did not belong to words. Bruce stood quietly, hands relaxed at his sides, breathing even. He had preserved what mattered most to him, not the appearance of superiority, but the principle of restraint. Nothing had been proven loudly. Nothing had been taken. For those who witnessed it, the moment did not crystallize around the technique. It stayed with the silence after, with the care shown when stopping became more important than finishing. The warmth that replaced tension lingered, steady and human. When people finally began to move, they did so differently. Not reverent, not shaken, just attentive, as if reminded of a standard they had nearly forgotten. The room emptied without comment, leaving behind a quiet that no longer pressed, but rested.